Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to all the commissioners for your service and for being here today. Mr. Chatterjee, I did want to say I appreciate the comment about the superiority of carbon pricing to state governments picking subsidies. I think the planet will be way better off the sooner we realize that, and I appreciate that. But so thanks for singing my song. I wanted to talk about something else today, though. So I want to talk about interstate transmission, which is integral to solving several interrelated challenges I think we've heard about today, including resiliency of our energy systems, maintaining our national security, reducing costs for consumers. And just in the last couple months, we've seen power crises that have revealed the vulnerabilities in our existing systems in Texas and in California. And while each event is unique, the extreme weather that exacerbated both is only going to get more common due to climate change. And we know this too well in the American West with record heat waves and drought already stressing our communities. I wanted to point out that a report from the American Council on Renewable Energy found that each additional gigawatt of transmission capacity connecting the Texas power grid with neighboring states could have saved nearly $1 billion and kept the heat on for approximately 200,000 Texas homes during the winter storm Uri in February of last year. So I think it's very clear we have to act quickly and effectively to build out interstate transmission for purposes of dealing with climate, building a clean energy economy, increasing our resiliency, and lowering consumer costs. I introduced a bill to clarify FERC's backstop siting authority for more interstate transmission projects. The Power On Act that would accelerate the build-out of clean energy, increase our reliability, lower the cost of electricity. It's been endorsed by key groups, including Americans for a Clean Energy Grid, the American Clean Power Association, and the American Council on Renewable Energy. Chairman Glick, you may or may not want to comment on that particular approach, but I did want you to tell me what you think are the major obstacles to the build-out of interstate high-voltage transmission.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peters. I think there are really three major impediments to the development of additional transmission to the grid. One of them is the siting situation, as you mentioned. In some cases, some states have been more proactive than others in improving siting, and when you're building a transmission line that's crossing 2 or more states, sometimes that's difficult to coordinate among the various states. Secondly, and then as you noted, that role is primarily the role of the states and not the federal government. The other two impediments, though, are things we have authority over today, one of which is planning. As I mentioned earlier, I think there's an issue with regard to our transmission planning process. We're not looking to the future. What we know the generation that's going to get built, Commissioner Clements mentioned 93% of all the generation in the interconnection queue currently are wind and solar. And so we know it's going to get built. We know essentially where it is, but we're not when we're planning for transmission, we're looking at what's the next generation project that's going to be built as opposed to what as a whole is going to get built. And that's been a big impediment. And we're addressing that in our ANOPR process. And third is cost allocation. Everyone wants transmission to be built. No one wants to pay for it. I think everyone's clear about that. But our job is to allocate cost in a manner that transmission costs are roughly commensurate with benefits. And the concern there is that in the past, at least when we looked at some of our cost allocation approaches, we've been looking at, are you getting power on the line? If you are, you're a beneficiary. If you're not getting power on the line, you're not. But the fact is these transmission assets provide significant benefits elsewhere. So for instance, it reduces congestion. Even if you're not getting power from that line, it's bringing in cheaper power elsewhere. Or increases reliability, enhances resilience. And I just want to quickly mention, you mentioned Texas.
Yeah, let me follow up though, because I only have a short time left. And Commissioner Clements mentioned the importance of good planning process, which is great. But if we don't build stuff, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to the planet. It doesn't matter to consumers. It doesn't matter to resiliency. You said that that first point was outside of your particular jurisdiction. What does Congress need to do to get you in a place or get us in a place where we see these lines built?
So it's primarily out of our jurisdiction. We currently have backstop siting authority today. If a transmission line is planned in part of a grid corridor that the DOE designates, but the courts have ruled that backstop siting authority only applies in a case where a state doesn't act at all. If a state says no, that backstop authority doesn't provide. I know
that could be corrected by statute, can it not?
Excuse me?
That could be corrected by statute.
Absolutely. I think your bill does that very point, does that very thing.
I just want to say I appreciate your work, and I intend to see that we can make sure that we provide the authority to you so that when states and tribes and everybody can't get off the dime, there's a national interest in getting these projects built. And I think that's on us, and you've made that clear today, and I look forward to addressing that problem with you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.